Hi, this is Rabbi Tzvi Mandel of Kahal B'nai Yisrael Community of Jewish Friends, and I want to give over a couple of stories of the Heilig Tzadikim who came from students of the Olig Baal Shem Tov. So, Mordechai Shchiza was one of the most beautiful, respected and awed tzaddikim of the students of the Baal Shem Tov, the next generation over. And in fact, he left over his son, Rabbi Yitzchak Neshchiza, and after that, sadly enough, the dynasty stopped because his son didn't have any children. Mordechai Neshchiza was so great, but he was in awe of the great Rabbi Yitzchak Baditcheva. So every day, after he finished saying the morning blessings, the brachas, he would thank Hashem for a long time. They say maybe for an hour, that the Eibshter gave the neshama of Rabbi Yitzchak ben Sarasasha to the Jewish people, and it was very special that he did that. So Mordechai Shchiza of Naftali Ropshitzer, as a young man, was very close to him for a short time. His Rebbe, the Rebbe Melech Lezhenska, told him to go to the Neshchiza. And when the Rebbe said, when he was already a young man, he had an open prophecy. He was able to look at a person, know everything about his past and his future, and everything about him is much Kaddish v'Noira. Besides, I knew the whole Torah backwards and forwards, the revealed Torah and the hidden Torah. So once he was by his Rebbe, by Reb Mordechai Shchiza, and he sees a man come in. And he looked at him and he goes over to him and says, "Aren't you embarrassed to come into the Rebbe? I know all your sins and where you were yesterday, and you didn't even go to the mikveh, you didn't make a chana preparation to go to the Rebbe. How did you come into the Rebbe?" Mordechai Shchiza. The man was broken like anything. He ran out as fast as he can, and right after he ran out, the Mordechai Shchiza comes into the waiting room where this happened and says, "Naftali, what did you do over here?" So he told him that a man walked in and I saw that he was holding in a very low place. How does he come to the Rebbe without doing tshuva? So Mordechai Shchiza told him, "Go right after him and bring him back, or else I don't ever want to see you, not in this world, not in the next." He was taken aback and he ran till he found him somewhere in a bar or something. He goes to him, he says, "The Rebbe wants to see you. I'm sorry, I chased you." And he started screaming out, "Oh, you leave me alone, you embarrassed me." And he begged him, "Mechila, please forgive me. Come to the Rebbe. The Rebbe wants to see you." He came back. And when he came in, the Heilige Neshchiza welcomed him with such friendliness, and I was waiting for you such a long time. You hadn't been around so long. And he goes in and he speaks to him for a longer time. And then this person leaves. When he leaves, the Neshchiza told him, "Naftali Ropshitzer, young man, I want to teach you something. Not everything that you see with your holy eyes, you have to verbalize with your mouth. And I'll tell you why. For an example, what you just did today. This man was once very close to me. And by him being very close to me, I held him back automatically from falling. I didn't tell him not to do this, not to do that. I was just very close to him. And he felt that the friendship and the closeness brought him to do the right things and to keep away from the wrong things. Now, something happened to him in his private life, and I don't have to tell you everything about his life, and somehow, sadly enough, he fell. And he started falling, and he came a little bit, and he didn't come at all to me, and I saw already how he was slipping away. I tried to strengthen him, but sadly enough, he fell to a very low level. And not long ago, he thought to himself, "Look, I fell so much, I'll never be able to pick myself up again. And I know that I won't be able to look in the face of the Holy Rebbe in the Shchiza. So he says to himself, so why don't I go convert to Catholicism? And there, I'm okay. He's thinking to himself these ugly, dark thoughts day and night, and it doesn't let him sleep, and he couldn't eat. And he's like back and forth. You know how the Yetzer Hara is, how the evil inclination is. So just the other week he said, I'm a Jew and I come from generations of Jews. I'm a descendant of Abraham. How can I do this? We'll try this, he says to himself. I'll go to the Rebbe. And if he's nice to me and he's mekarev to me and brings me close to him and says kind things, so I'll become better and I know I could correct myself. But if anything happens that's negative, I'm out of there. Straight to the church. And he came to me, says in the Shchiza to Reb Naftali Ropshitzer, and you chased him away. So, young man, one day you'll be a big Rebbe with Chassidim. Watch what you say with your mouth. As great as you are. What a story. Next story was about the Heilig Reb Shalom Belzer. Reb Shalom Belzer, it's known that he built a shul in Belz that was phenomenal. In fact, today the shul in Yerushalayim, Belz, they say is a model of that shul. And it was made with yichudim and kavanas, with deep Kabbalistic kavanas behind it and things that you and I will never understand. And the Belzer himself helped the builders as much as he can. He was already an older man to build this shul. And his older brother, Reb Leibish, once came to visit him and said, Shulam, why are you doing this? Why don't you let the workers work and you sit down and learn? So he says, I'll tell you why. I myself have to build this shul. A number of years ago, it was revealed to me from heaven that if I want to see Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Hanavi, I could merit to see him. But I'm going to have to be up 1,000 nights straight studying the depths of the Torah and Kabbalah and all these higher things. So 2 friends of mine and I got together and we started learning. The first friend fell away after a couple of 100 nights. The second one after 800 nights. Me, by the 999th night, the other side couldn't take it. The Sitra Achra, the Yetzer Hara couldn't take it. So there was an unbelievable storm. It was blistering thunder and lightning. I was sitting in a shul all by myself. I was so scared. But I kept on learning and studying. And I didn't know if I could even stay much longer in the shul. I was afraid the windows are going to bust because the lightning, and it was awesome. It was awesome. But I held on to Hashem and I said, I know Hashem loves me and there's nothing that could destroy the relationship between me and Hashem. So I just kept on studying and doing tshuva. And all of a sudden, this man with the unbelievable countenance came in and I knew he didn't walk in the door because it was locked. So I knew it was, of course, Elijah the prophet. And he had this unbelievable shine and the whole room shined up. And he stood with me. I was standing next to the Aron HaKodesh, next to the Holy Ark, studying, and he studied with me that night the laws of building a shul. So it's for that shul that's the shul that I want to build, and I want to do it as much as I can. If I would be younger, I would have done everything myself. But as much as I can, I want to do it on my own, with my own physical hands. So, another story I want to speak to you about one of the greatest tzaddikim, came from students of the Baal Shem Tov, the Heilige Kapitchen Tzidei Abzuchem Vacha, Zchusa Yogan Aleinu L'Kol Yisrael Amen, which my family comes from many generations, and we had the great zchus and merit to be very closely connected to him as we were growing up. And was sure that in the higher worlds he's still praying for us and for all of us, all the Jewish people to come out of this bitter exile. The Rebbe Mishra Heschel lived on Lower East Side in Manhattan, and he was respected by all people, and his love for others surpassed anyone's idea, anyone's ideals, because it was just beyond. And one Shabbos morning, I heard that some people on the East Side, might have heard from Patikarav, I believe, rabbi on the East Side. I did. So one Shabbos morning, he was going to the mikveh on the East Side. This is going back in the 50s, probably early 50s. And there was only one mikveh on the Lower East Side. It was the public mikveh that was used for women at night. In the morning, Chassidishe used to go there to the mikveh. It was about 5 in the morning, and all of a sudden he sees Nebuch, sadly enough, by one of the houses, a woman laying there with blankets over her in midwinter, and he goes over and he says, "My daughter, why are you here?" On the East Side those days, everybody spoke Yiddish, whether you were religious or not. And she starts bawling, crying. And she says, my landlord. And he says, what happened? She could barely talk, and she was crying and zips. And he says, talk to me. Tell me, what's wrong? And she tells him, my landlord threw me out of the house. I can't afford the rent. And I've been lying here for, I don't know whether it was the first night or a number of nights already. He was beside himself. So he says, where do you live? So he went with her to the landlord, knocked on the door, and the landlord says, what's this here? But he saw the Rebbe, so he became respectful. And the Rebbe promised him that if he lets her come back into the house now and live like a mensch, then he's coming after Shabbos to pay her rent. He came that Saturday night, he came with 6 months' rent ahead of the time. That was his helping someone who he didn't even know. Another story I'll tell you like this, that there was one day, was on Friday, on Erev Shabbos. His custom was that as a preparation for Shabbos, he used to go do all different kinds of acts of kindness, and in those days, he would go a lot of times to the Bowery, and the Bowery then was not the Bowery today, so it wasn't full of drugs and whatnot. Then also it had like drunkards, and sadly enough, the sad truth is that there were a lot of Jewish people that after the war, that Nebuch saw their families killed in front of them by Hitler, and they didn't want to live in, they didn't want any part of the world. And some of them in Europe were great religious people, some of them great scholars, Torah scholars even, and scholars in other professions as well. But they'd rather get some booze and lie down and live like animals. Sadly enough, and we can't even judge them because of what they went through. So Kapitchin sees a Yidel over there, and he goes over to him and speaks to him, and he becomes his friend, and he says, where are you going for Shabbos tonight? So he says, I don't have any place to go. I didn't have Shabbos already since I came to this country. He says, come to my house. And he takes him, goes home with him, gives him a shower, gives him a place to sleep, gives him a nice warm meal. Now, this man, he was living on the streets, and some of them maybe besides everything else, they were not like, some of them, not all of them, some were like not 100% in their minds, emotional health and mental health from what they've gone through. So the Rebbe comes into the Tish Friday night, and this guy tells the Kapitch's children, who themselves were great, great holy people, but they took care of everything there. Say, I want to sit next to the rabbi. So he told me, you can't sit next to the rabbi, come on. And, the rabbi sits up front, and no. The rabbi brought me to his home. I deserve to sit next to the rabbi. Anyway, So the Rebbe saw something was going on. He says, "What's wrong?" He said, "He wants to sit next to the father." Yeah, sure. So he moves over. He gets him a chair, sits him next to him the whole time. Anyway, next week, the Chassidishe Rebbe comes into the Tish Friday night, and the Chassidim are there, and his children are there, and he says, "Where is that man that I brought here last week?" So the children are already they're in trouble now. So he says, "I'm not making Kiddush till he's here. Why shouldn't another Jew come and enjoy Shabbos?" They went to the Bowery, and don't you think he wouldn't come? He says, "What do you mean? You embarrassed me last night. You didn't let me sit next to the rabbi." And even later on, so till he's, I'm not coming. Anyway, schlepped him back. And that Shabbos, from what I heard, the Rebbe made Kiddush 4 in the morning, only to help another Yid that he didn't even know, right? Here's another story about the Chassidishe Stories. So after the war, after the Second World War, as everybody knows, the American soldiers went to the DP camps and helped a lot of Jews. And they went a number of times and took them to America by ship. And there was one man, there was a couple that they allowed the man to go on the ship, but the wife, they said, "No, you can't come." So the guy says, "What do you mean? She's my wife." And they said, "No, we have a quota, and you're the last one. Whatever you're 800 people, you're the last one, and she can't come. She'll come in 2 weeks." So he starts bawling, crying. "Look, I saw my whole family geschacht in front of me and my wife's family. All we have is each other. Can't you just open your heart and spare one more place on the ship?" "No, we don't do anything illegal, you know." All of a sudden, they don't do anything illegal, right? And she'll come in 2 weeks. Anyway, 2 weeks, 2 months, 6 months. In those days, they didn't have the communication like they have today, and his wife's not there. He was so broken, and one day he's walking in the street on Lower East Side, and as we said, you know, he said everybody spoke Yiddish. So he goes over to another Yid and he says, "Reb Yid, today I'm committing suicide. I can't take it. What did Hashem do to me? My whole family got geschacht and that, this and that. And here my wife was saved, and, you know, I don't know where she is. Who knows what they did to her?" Anyway, this Yid obviously was a messenger from Hashem, and he says to him, "Listen, go to the Chassidishe Rebbe and speak to him on Henry Street." He says, "Don't tell me about Rebbes. I saw enough Rebbes, sadly enough, thrown into the crematorium, and another Rebbe, you know." He said, so the guy was insistent, thank God. And he says, "Go to the Rebbe on Henry Street, Rabbi Heschel, go there, speak to me." He listens, he goes there, and he comes in to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's bawling, crying, and he's bawling, crying. In the middle, the Rebbe says to him, "You know what? Go tomorrow morning, 7 o'clock, to the terminal over there, where the ships come in, to the port, and you'll meet your wife." The guy was elated. He was so happy. He couldn't sleep all night. He davened with the first minyan. 7 o'clock, he was there, and sure enough, his wife walks off. They were so happy. And the Holy Side was, Tumlin was, you know, everybody was talking about the big Meifus, the big miracle that the Chassidishe Rebbe, wow, obviously he's an open Baruch HaKodesh, he has prophecy. And anyway, like decent human beings, the couple went to the Rebbe to thank him. Coming to the Rebbe, and the Rebbe's so happy, and they're talking, they're drinking l'chaim, and middle, the Rebbe says, "Excuse me, sir, I want to ask you something. The Holy Side is talking about, I made a Meifus." "I made a Meifus? Chassidishe Rebbe doesn't make any Meifus. I don't do any miracles." So he asked him, "So how did the Rebbe know that my wife was coming off?" So he says, "I didn't know. But after you walked out of here, I lifted my eyes to God and I said, Ribono Shel Olam, Master of the world, you know I never said a lie in my life. Don't make me a liar." How many of us could lift our eyes to Hashem and say that? I think it's a little bit of a lesson for us, right? We should try not to say lies. Okay, that's it for now. Have a good